everyone, and welcome to Anonymous Talks. Anonymous Talks is a platform where anyone can share their story anonymously for the purpose of helping others going through a similar experience. It is also a platform to have conversations and discussions to address topics, some of which are controversial. I'm your host, my name is Dana, and I'm also a life coach who loves helping people find the power within themselves.
Today, we have a story of someone who is strong, who is courageous, and persuasive. First of all, I would like to thank you for being my guest and would like to start by asking you to name your story. What would you call your story?
Thank you for having me with you today, Dana. And I'd like to share this experience of mine, the story of mine. If I were to title it, it would be called The Other Side.
The Other Side. So tell me about it.
Well, I guess I'd have to go to the very beginning. Let's go back in time to when I was 15. And like many of us have experienced while we were 15, the joy of being in love for the first time in our life. I ended up giving in to peer pressure at the time and deciding to give dating a shot. Now, a little bit about me is that I come from a very orthodox family. Big on religion, big on no boys, and I was in an all-girls school, so it's a miracle I even found a boy. And this boy turned out to be my third grade classmate. We reconnected over a social media platform. One thing led to another, and 6 months down the lane, I was being asked out over, a message on a social media platform. Now, keep in mind, I had never met this person. We had a gap of about 7-8 years between when we last met and when we were talking now. So I had zero idea about his personality. All I knew was that he was a boy who carried a backpack that was bigger than him.
What do you mean by that?
You know how kids carry those huge backpacks?
So literally?
Literally.
Okay.
It's the literal meaning.
Okay.
And we ended up meeting and dating. And this was, wonderful for the first 3 months. And after that, keeping in mind that I had never dated before and nor had he, this is where I feel things started to take a, not so nice turn. Now, being that young, a boy being that young, naturally they are going to be very aware of their physical needs. They're going to be very in touch with their physical self. And keeping in mind of how much sexual content is there online or anywhere you look, to be honest, women are sexualized like no other time right now. Naturally, he wanted to have sex. And at the age of 15, since I did mention that I have a religious background, for me that was a huge no. Because in my books, if I were to sleep with someone, that would involve me being married to that person. However, that did not pan out very well, because what led to me saying no turned out to us meeting every single time and him asking the same question again and again and again over the span of 2 years.
Wow.
Now, yeah, I know. And back then you're young and you don't think that, this is something toxic. Hell, you don't even know what toxic means at that point in time. You're just like, this is my first love. I need to cling on to it with all my life. And of course, my parents did not help, because my folks had a love marriage, and coming from the community that I come from, love in that is pretty rare. So for my mom to meet my dad at the age of 15, I thought this was history repeating itself.
Okay.
And so I wanted to give it my all. And naturally, I think about the age of 18 when we entered university. Well, I basically saw that there was a certain amount of distance that was coming between us because of this question that was posed each time. And each time the answer would be no. And one fine morning, when we met, he asked me this question again: do you want to have sex? And in that moment, I realized that as much as I love this person, if they do not respect my wants and if they do not respect my answer or my needs, then I don't want this. Like, I can love you, but I need to leave this equation for my sanity. Because at that point in time, I would have been untrue to myself just to please someone that was not me. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. So while I hesitated giving an answer back this time around, he saw that hesitation because I had never hesitated before. So he saw that hesitation as a green light. And that is the story of how I ended up losing my virginity without my consent. Now, the immediate question over there would be, why didn't you fight him, right? You could have fought him off, you could have done something. And while I did fight him, while I was telling him to stop, he wasn't listening. He was listening, but he wasn't actually understanding what I was saying. Because, again, I don't know if this is all the blue movies out there that turn this into a whole fantasy of a woman saying stop but not really meaning stop. But in that moment, when it happened, I fought him, but I could only fight him so much because, one, he was stronger than me, and two, a little part of me died that day. And once I lost her, I froze. And if you were to ask me to describe the entire experience to you, hell, my therapist asked me to describe that entire experience to him. And I couldn't, because I have no memory of it. Because in that moment, it was an out of body experience. It was like as if I had left my body.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I do remember was the headboard of my bed, which was made out of wood at the time. It has carvings on it. It was made out of mahogany wood. It is dark brown, almost red in color, with black streaks in the middle. Notice that I have explicit detail about the wood. I guess that was my way of zoning out and getting out of the situation I currently was in. Now, what actually happened after all of this was over was I told him that he shouldn't have done what he just did. And I asked him, do you realize what you just did? Do you know what his response to that was?
What?
I'm sorry. And in that moment, I knew that there was no going back from this. Like, if I thought I wanted him around as a friend, if I thought I wanted even a speck of him in my life, in that moment, I realized that he meant nothing to me.
What happened next?
Well, over the span of the next 3 days, I stopped eating, drinking water. All I did was sit in the shower and cry. I remember scrubbing my skin so hard that there were bruises on my skin. Like, my skin was red, it was bleeding. And I still couldn't make peace with my very own body. It was like I was another person and I didn't know how to function. Like, I didn't know who I was anymore. And after 3 days, I obviously wasn't the same person in the relationship. And given that
The relationship went on.
It did for 3 days. And
Okay.
after that, he broke up with me.
Because?
He felt hollow.
Okay. Let's tackle your feelings first and then go into his feelings.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So his excuse at the time was that he felt hollow and he felt like I had become a whole different person in this relationship, and that's why, we should call it quits because he didn't see a future anymore with us.
You've been together for
2 years, nearly 2.5 years, so 2 years and 6 months.
okay.
And my entire response to that entire, well, for a lack of a better word, bullshit, was okay.
Okay. But let's go back to what you were feeling.
Of course.
So, before you talked to him, because I don't know if you had a conversation or you've actually tackled what happened afterwards, after he said sorry, and I feel like I don't want to assume, but like a cold sorry without really meaning. But you tell me what you felt.
Well, I think that was a half-assed apology. And I think he apologized for something that he didn't even see as wrong. Something that he saw was his right. And in that moment, I realized that this person was wrong for me from the very start. But it took a horrible, horrible experience for me to realize that I needed to leave that equation now. That was my wake-up call. And did we speak about this after that incident? No. I couldn't bring myself to even have a conversation with him ever again, because each time, don't get me wrong, he's a guy, he's going to pop out of nowhere. The moment they realize that you're doing better and you're living a better life without them, they're back in. But he popped out of nowhere, and I remember it was literally just a text message over another social media platform, and I remember my entire body shaking in response. Like, all he said was hello, and my entire body shook. That's when I realized that this person cannot even be a part of my life years or decades later. Like, hell no.
You said that something died inside of you.
Yeah.
What's that?
The naiveness, the thought that, everyone has your best interests at heart, or that feeling of being gullible, of believing everything at face value and not digging deeper, of blind trust. Because I put trust into another person, trust that this person, the first love that I ever had in this life, wouldn't harm me. And hell, he was the only person to harm me to the extent of actually sending me to a shrink. But if that had not happened, I wouldn't be who I am today.
That's true. But tell me, in terms of trust, when it comes to trust, how did that affect you? Short term, long term, and so on, into your journey?
Well, if we were to talk about it in short term, I ended up being a pile of crying mess. So I ended up failing my first year in university because failing 2 modules in my first year of university because of low attendance and not showing up for classes and not submitting assignments, because I remember days when I couldn't even get out of bed because I was crying my eyes out.
For how long did that stay?
The pain? 8 months.
Wow.
For 8 months, I cried my eyes out, wiped my face, put on makeup, went to university, came back home, pretended like everything was fine. Hell, I don't think I started eating a proper meal until 3 months had gone by. Like, everything that I was having, I couldn't keep it within me, because the thought of something going into this body for nourishment, the same body that was used and thrown, it felt wrong in a way.
Were you able to talk to anyone?
I did not. One of the, well, growing up, I guess I don't want to say blame, but I guess seeing the attachment style of my parents changed me. My mom has always been someone that was extremely codependent on another person, be it her parents, be it her husband, be it her children, whatever it might be. And I think I made myself a promise while I saw that while I was growing up, that I would never, I saw depending on another person as weakness. And if anything, that experience solidified that belief that I can't depend on anybody but myself. Because in that experience, my trust was broken. I depended on another person and my trust was broken. So that led to me completely shutting off and not even telling my best friends or my closest friends or even my family or even a single soul about this experience.
Did you feel like telling someone? Did you feel like, I want to get this out? Or did you feel like
I felt ashamed.
ashamed
Yeah, I felt ashamed.
because of?
Because in my head, I'm just like, how could I allow this to happen to me? I could have been wiser. I could have done this. I could have done that. But what I didn't realize at the time was that while I could have done all of that, this wasn't my fault.
You blamed yourself.
I blamed myself for 8 years before I opened up to another soul about this.
My God.
8 years, Dana. All that pain, all that guilt, all that whatever negative feeling that I harbored within me about this experience, I kept that within me and only to me. And what did this do? This affected my religious beliefs. This affected my relationship with my parents. This affected my future relationships. I did end up dating after this experience, and I ended up dating only one person who then, well, I ended up dating for 6 years. And I only told him about this experience after we broke up. Because when I tried talking about my previous relationship, because I want my partner to know about my history, about what had happened in the past with me and what made me me, you know? His explicit words were that I don't want to know anything about what you did with him or what you went through with him.
Interesting.
Because that was...
Even without him having any hint of what has happened.
He didn't have a clue. But keeping this all within me was killing me. And then after 8 years, I told my mom about it. My mother was the first person that I revealed it to.
Can I ask what made you tell her? From what I gathered, you said that you did not say anything to anyone because of shame. But I also understood that this was shame because of blaming yourself. How can I let this happen to me? But it wasn't, you didn't say that you were afraid of what they would say or think. How come?
Because what they would say or think did not matter. It had already happened. The only people whose opinion would have mattered in the situation would be 1, the victim, and 2, the perpetrator. And given that the person that inflicted those wounds felt zero remorse, the only person whose opinion mattered was mine.
And that caused shame.
Tremendous amount of shame, to the extent that I started making subtle changes into my outfits. So before I used to wear, I don't know, let's say sleeveless tops or cap sleeves or half sleeves. I ended up making a switch and turning to more modest clothing and covering my body and every part of my skin off, just so it wouldn't attract the wrong kind of attention.
And this happened on purpose or
Yeah,
without?
that was
That
with
was on
intent.
purpose.
Yes,
Mm.
because I didn't want to repeat of the same situation again.
Okay. And reflecting back to it, so when you say shame, when you say I did this so that it doesn't get repeated, what do you think now? So, what do you think of your thought of yourself? That word shame, which I don't like, but you tell me, how do you reflect now back to it?
If I could go back in time and hug that poor soul for thinking that any of this was her fault and for feeling shame about something that was not even a bad experience is not shameful. When you fall down on the ground, you don't feel shame. You dust yourself up and you get back up. You say, fine, I've got a wound. We'll take care of this wound. We'll heal this wound. We'll put medicine, antiseptic, whatever on it, and nurture it so that it heals. But to keep that wound alive and keep picking at it for 8 years, goddamn, she's crazy. But
She's been through a lot.
she has, and she came out strong as hell. The whole experience caused a lot of health issues in my body. I think I think I'm the only person that I can say that she went through bulimia, she went through anorexia, she went through obesity, all in the span of maybe 5 years. And after going through all of that right now, I am the most active I have ever been. I am the strongest both physically and mentally that I have ever been. And I'm the happiest that I have ever been. Despite the pain, despite the trauma that a bad experience brought, she realized that she being me and my past version, of course, that I had an option. An experience can either make you or break you, but it's always a choice in front of you. If you choose for it to break you, you will end up being in a spiral of pain that you would probably never get out of. Don't get me wrong. I've been through depression. I've been through sleepless nights. I've been through nightmares. I was diagnosed with PTSD, something that war veterans come back with. It makes you think that I was at war with myself for 8 years. And after all of that, if I can survive and if I can live another day, if I can still not take my life over something that hurt my very soul and took my belief in love away. Hell, if I can still continue to believe in love and still be a romantic after all of this that has happened, anyone can.
Amazing.
You just need to choose to let this experience make you instead of break you.
I like that. I want to go back to the point where you told your mom.
Yeah.
So after 8 years, you decided to tell her. What made you ready? What made her ready, in your view, to hear this?
She wasn't ready at all. Hell, I wasn't ready. The way that I revealed it to my mom was actually by blurting it out. And the reason that I blurted it out was because, like I said, over the last 5 years, my body has been through tremendous amount of changes. And we went to the doctor to check if I had PCOS because I kept putting on weight. I was nearly at 97 kgs, and there were a lot of acne scars on my face. My like the thyroid levels that I had were normal, so we were trying to figure out why was I putting on weight, when in reality it was just because I found comfort in food. My mother was trying to find an alternate reason. And when we went to the doctor asked my mom a question when I wasn't in the room, which was I sexually active? And my mom ended up, at the time, she knew that I was dating the guy that I mentioned previously, the one that I dated for 6 years. So she asked me the question, like, are you sexually active with him?
The doctor asked your mom, not asked you?
Well, again, doctors in our community are a little bit
All right,
backward.
I'll let it go.
Yeah. Keep in mind that the doctor was a male.
Yeah.
So, like, apparently he saw the window to ask my mother this question instead of the freaking patient that he was dealing with. But either way,
Anyway, sorry, continue.
my mom ended up asking me this question, whether I was or not. And I was horrified, to say the least. And I told her it was none of her business. And she sat down having a mental breakdown over the fact that she raised a kid that just does whatever she wants to in her life, and she's not included and she's always left out. A little bit of a melodrama. And I then had to interrupt that and tell her that the person that I was with respected my body and my wish enough to not touch me, because after that experience I still held the belief that the only person that I would ever sleep with would be my husband, and my ex respected that. And that was a request that I put forward in our first year of relationship. Like, I need that room to myself. I didn't give him an explanation as to why, when, how, what, and regardless of that, he respected me. He respected that opinion, for which I am grateful for. And I told my mom it was none of her business, but no, I wasn't. And then she said, why would the doctor say such a thing? And that's when the topic came out, and I'm just like, you really want to know? And then that's when I spilled the beans. My mother's first reaction to that wasn't a hug or a comforting few words or anything. Her first words to that was, how could you do this to me? Because this happened under her roof, under her care. And she saw it as a sense of betrayal.
From?
Me.
From you to her?
Yeah. And I think 5 minutes into that rant of hers, I was bawling in tears and told her to get out of my room and to never speak about this again, because I refused to have this conversation with her anymore. And that's how my mom came to know about it.
Did you guys not talk about it afterwards?
We did. And I went through this whole phase of I hate all men. And amusingly, my mom joined me on that bandwagon. And we just started like, it wasn't really feminist, but it was fun having her with you rather than against you,
Yes.
But yeah, none of which required me to shame myself, though. That shame was unnecessary.
Definitely.
And I've had years to deal with this pain. I've had, well, not years, a whole decade to deal with this pain. And right now, I would say that I'm in a position where I can speak about this pain and give you insight into it and give you the knowledge that I've gained through it in order to grow and heal yourself. Because that's the most important part, to face the pain and to go through that healing process.
True. Definitely. I need to thank you for everything that you've shared. I think the purpose of this is to help people, and I think it definitely will. So thank you for your courage.
Thank you for having me, Dana. It was a pleasure.